Francis Bacon, who lived from 1561 to 1626, was a British Franciscan monk and Lord Chancellor of England, who loved to learn by doing experiments and making observations. He is known today as the father of the scientific method. And he was a Christian, a follower of Jesus. He devoted time to Bible study and wrote books about the Psalms and how to pray. Francis did his work in a time when most people still believed that the only way to discover truth about anything was to think deeply and logically about it until the conclusion became clear. This is known as the deductive method. Practical experiments, on the other hand, were considered to be physical work, yuck, and therefore unworthy of civilized scholars. Francis Bacon thought otherwise and advocated the inductive method, which uses experiments to acquire knowledge and today is recognised to be essential. Sometimes people today think that you can't believe in God and science, that you have to pick one. But Christians have been at the cutting edge of scientific progress from the very beginning. Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, Newton, Leibniz, Pascal, Faraday, Kelvin, Pasteur, and the list goes on and on. Francis Bacon believed that God has given us two great books to study. One is the Bible, which tells us all about God's plan. The other is the book of creation, which tells us all about God's power. He studied God's words and God's works alongside each other, and if they seemed to ever disagree, he would think he was reading one of them wrong and continue to study both, because God is the author of both. As a faithful follower of Jesus who loved to read the Bible, Francis would have known what it says about creation, pointing us to the Creator. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Francis said there are two books laid before us to study, to prevent our falling into error. First, the volume of the Scriptures which reveal the will of God. Then the volume of the creatures which express his power. Francis wasn't perfect. Like any Christian, he knew he made mistakes and needed forgiveness from God. But we remember and celebrate him today as the father of the scientific method and an example of challenging prevailing thought and studying the Bible and creation together. We sometimes forget that science owes its beginnings and some of its biggest discoveries to Christians. Francis Bacon's actions in this area have made the world a better place, and he shows us what can happen when followers of Jesus stay open-minded and keep studying and learning all they can about God's words and God's world.